Good evening and welcome to the national news broadcast on Channel I. And we're ready to bring you top stories from home and around the world. I'm Natalia Viravadana.
Very good evening. I'm Lakshit Singha. We start off by taking a look at the top stories for tonight.
3 more corona-infected patients detected. A number of decisions taken on the orders of the President and the Prime Minister to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. The government states there is no shortage of goods or fuel in the country. The Canadian Prime Minister's spouse contracts the coronavirus. Former parliamentarian Ravi Karunanayake appears before court. China alleges that it was the US military that released the coronavirus to the city of Wuhan.
And now on the top story, Director General of Health Services Dr. Anil Jayasinghe confirms that 3 more persons newly infected by the coronavirus have been detected. One individual has returned after touring Germany, while the other 2 individuals are amongst those directed to the Kandakadu Quarantine Centre upon arriving from Italy. Director of Government Information Nalaka Kalueva issuing a release states 1 individual is undergoing treatment at the Infectious Disease Hospital at Angoda, while the other 2 individuals are undergoing treatment at the Polonnaruwa Hospital. This brings the confirmed corona cases to 5. Consultant Dr. Anil Jayasinghe says the patient who was identified first is also suffering from diabetes, high blood pressure and a respiratory syndrome. Meanwhile, the Sri Lankan woman who contracted the COVID-19 virus in Italy has recovered fully and has been discharged from hospital.
Nobody can leave quarantine, and also the system has further improved for their comfort and their flexibility and not to hinder other passengers, as well as for us to do it in a bit of a simple manner. That is, through the manifest we identify the passengers from those 3 countries in the plane itself. So therefore they need not to be escorted the main building. They are straight away taken to the domestic arrival, and then it's easy. But I assure nobody could
get got away.
They are equipped as much as possible. So I don't say that we don't have resource limitations. Obviously we have resource limitations. Yeah. So therefore we are sort of improving the surge capacity. And I have to say that WHO is going to purchase some equipment and other medical requirements in an emergency manner for about $100,000 worth equipment. And also there are other development partners. For example, ADB is also going to buy some equipment. So that is how. And also we are going to repair some of the ventilators, because in this case ventilators are required if patients get bad. So therefore we are going to repair some of the ventilators which can be repaired easily.
Dr. Jayasinghe says the firstly identified patient has had interactions with around 60 persons, while the secondly identified patient has had interactions with 20 persons. 64 persons are under observation at 17 hospitals throughout the country, as it is suspected that they have contracted the virus. Army Commander Lieutenant General Shalendra Silva says there is no issue and therefore there is no need to have any undue fear. He further states as a government and as the Tri-Forces, all necessary measures are being taken on behalf of the Health Ministry. Defence Secretary Retired Major General Kamal Gunaratne says the Ministry of Defence and the Ministry of Health are devising a joint program to prevent this virus from spreading amongst the population of 22 million persons. The University Grants Commission states all state universities will remain closed for 2 weeks with effect from tomorrow in view of the present situation arising from the spread of the new coronavirus. This closure of universities pertains only to university students. The Ministry of Education states all national colleges of education and teachers training institutes across the island have been granted a 2-week holiday period from the 16th to the 29th of this month. The Ministry of Women and Children's Affairs Social Empowerment has decided to commence the April vacation for all preschools from today. The recommencement date for preschools will be notified later. Meanwhile, the National Child Protection Authority calls for the instructions detailed by the Ministry of Health to be followed in order to protect children at child development centres, early childhood development centres and daycare centres from the COVID-19 virus. The Department of Government Information requests the public to be attentive to the official notifications issued by the government pertaining to the coronavirus, as it has been observed that certain parties are propagating unconfirmed details over social media, which creates panic among the public. The Department of Government Information calls on the public not to be misled by various rumors stating that COVID-19 infected individuals have been detected in certain areas. 2 media centers have been established to provide information on the COVID-19 virus, and these centers have 2 24-hour hotlines available, and these telephone numbers are 0710-107-107 and 0113-071-073. Meanwhile, passengers arriving in Sri Lanka by air from 11 countries have been banned entry into the country for 2 weeks. A decision has been taken to refuse entry with effect from today for all passengers arriving from South Africa, Italy and Iran. Chairman of the Civil Aviation Authority, Upul Dharmadasa, says it has been decided to prohibit the entry of passengers from another 8 countries with effect from the 15th of this month.
At the moment, yesterday we restricted 3 countries bringing in passengers from South Korea, Iran and Italy. The reason we have taken this decision is because of the increasing coronavirus patients. Now today we have taken to restrict another 8 countries. Total, the new countries that we have added to the restriction are France, Spain, Germany, Switzerland, Denmark, Netherlands, Sweden and Australia. This ban will continue until the 29th of March and it will begin at 11:59 p.m. on the 15th of March. This is for the 8 countries. The other 3 is already effective beginning tomorrow, which was brought into effect yesterday, which was broadcast yesterday.
The Foreign Employment Bureau has decided to withhold approval to Sri Lankans intending to migrate abroad for employment until the worldwide spread of the coronavirus is brought under considerable control. Raising awareness on the COVID-19 virus amongst public officials is underway. Thereby, they will be educated on the basic preventive steps. A program in this regard was held at the Ministry of Public Administration, Home Affairs and Local Government today. The 2-match test series to be played between Sri Lanka and England has been postponed until further notice. This decision was taken after a discussion between Sri Lanka Cricket and the England Cricket Board.
Meanwhile, Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro has tested positive for the novel coronavirus, Brazil media reported a short while ago. Fox News later confirmed the news as well. The Brazilian newspapers reported yesterday that Bolsonaro had been tested for the coronavirus and was being monitored. On Saturday, he sat next to U.S. President Donald Trump at his resort in Florida. Bolsonaro's communications chief, Fabio Weingarten, has also tested positive for the virus. The far-right leader had been monitored for the deadly bug that has spread to at least 34 people in the Latin American country, Reuters reported. Bolsonaro previously tried to downplay the worldwide health threat Tuesday during a visit to Miami, Florida. The White House said earlier in the week that Trump was in excellent health after shaking hands with a congressman exposed to the virus. A number of decisions were taken today on the orders of the President and the Prime Minister to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. Amongst these decisions were taken to suspend the issuance of visas for Europeans for 2 weeks and to disinfect public transportation facilities from tomorrow. The support of the security units will be obtained for this purpose. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, at the discussion held at the Presidential Secretariat today, instructed officials to take all steps to the maximum to protect the health of the people. As a result of many measures taken since January, it was possible to prevent the coronavirus from entering the country. Sri Lanka is at the forefront amongst the countries that established a task force for the prevention of the virus. The President observed that the number of infected patients is on the rise in Europe. Therefore, he believes a decision will have to be taken to suspend arrivals from Europe for at least 2 weeks. Otherwise, it will be difficult to control the situation. The President says when compared with other countries in Sri Lanka, preventive measures were implemented early and they were successful. He noted the Ministry of Health had taken proper steps from the beginning, including quarantined medical observations and preparations to deal with the disease.
As rumors have been spreading on a shortage of goods, consumers have begun storing stocks of essential goods. As a result, it has been reported that certain trade outlets were short of goods. The Rupavahini news team set out to inquire into how true this situation is. The general public hurriedly began storing stocks of goods the moment it was reported that a Sri Lankan had contracted the coronavirus. As a result, long queues were seen at filling stations as well as empty racks at shops. However, when touring the markets, our team observed that there is no shortage of goods. Mr. Bandula Gunawardhan engaged in an observation of the trade outlets along the 4th Cross Street in Colombo Peta today, after a complaint was received that goods were being sold for higher prices. Officials of the Consumer Affairs Authority also checked on the prices of goods. The rice vendors of Maradaghamula say that there is no shortage of rice.
The coronavirus and the related quarantined medical observations are being intensely discussed these days. Here we explain as to what these quarantined medical procedures involve. 80% of the patients who succumb to the disease are elderly persons or over 60 years of age and patients suffering from long-term illnesses. The virus has currently spread to over 100 countries. Therefore, if returning from a country in which the coronavirus is spreading rapidly, it is a must to undergo quarantined health monitoring. Thereby, such high-risk countries are being identified and passengers arriving from such countries are being directed to quarantine centers. Should passengers refuse the quarantine screening process and head for their homes, their families can be at risk if they have contracted the virus. The quarantine process is being initiated as a preventive measure. Therefore, it is the responsibility of all passengers to cooperate with such implemented measures. As citizens, it is our duty to comply with the Quarantine Act in order to prevent an epidemic situation. Director of the quarantine centers functioning under the Ministry of Health, Consultant Dr. S.M. Arnold explained this process to the media in this manner.
If we talk about what is quarantining, actually quarantining is basically you are limiting the movement of a person who is basically suspected to be exposed to a disease agent, through that to prevent the disease spread to the community or the other person. Actually, when we take quarantining, we are not actually quarantining a diseased person. Actually, the person who has been quarantined is a normal person. We consider that person as a normal person until signs and symptoms develop in that person. So by quarantining or by sending a person who is returning from overseas, what we are going to do is to limit that person's movement in the community. And you are in a quarantine facility, you will be spending a normal life, but you are advised to stay in your place, don't mingle with other person, have good hand hygiene, and through those activities also we are trying to prevent the spread. So apart from that, the person who is being quarantined gets a very big benefit. What is the benefit? Now, if a person who is actually having been infected with the disease but signs and symptoms are not there, you just go to your residence or home, what you will be doing is you will be spreading the disease to your close one, your mother, father, your children, your spouse, and apart from that you will be spreading the disease to the community. By going to a quarantine facility for a specified period, it is 2 weeks for coronavirus, you will be basically protecting your family, your neighbors and your community. So it is a big social responsibility of any citizens of Sri Lanka who is returning from a country which is infected with coronavirus. It's your social responsibility to act responsibly and prevent the disease going to the community and entire country.
Sophie Gregoire-Trudeau, the wife of Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, has tested positive for the novel coronavirus, becoming the latest in a string of high-profile individuals to become infected with the potentially deadly pathogen.
Canadian leader Justin Trudeau will be in isolation after his wife Sophie tested positive for the coronavirus on Thursday. Sophie Gregoire-Trudeau recently returned from London with what she described in a personal note as, quote, uncomfortable symptoms of the virus. An official statement said the Prime Minister himself had no symptoms but was self-isolating as a precaution, and that Trudeau, quote, will continue to fully assume his duties and will address Canadians tomorrow. Canada has reported 145 cases of the virus, 3 times what it had a week ago. 1 person in the country has died and 7 of Canada's provinces have recorded infections. British Columbia has advised against all non-essential foreign travel. It's located across the border from Washington, one of the worst-hit U.S. states, with hundreds of cases and more than 30 deaths. In another blow to Canada, the National Hockey League suspended its season because of the outbreak. The NHL says its goal is to resume play, quote, as soon as is appropriate and prudent, so teams can compete for the Stanley Cup.
Now, policymakers and government leaders have taken a range of measures to shore up financial markets and economies in the face of a coronavirus pandemic. Here is a list of how some of the world's biggest economies and economic blocs have reacted.
$50 billion.
25 billion euros.
$1 billion COVID-19 response fund.
This is how some of the world's biggest economies are responding as COVID-19 sparks panic.
This is not a financial crisis.
President Donald Trump signed an $8.3 billion emergency spending bill, greenlit low-interest loans to vulnerable businesses, and deferred tax payments without interest or penalties for those affected.
This action will provide more than $200 billion of additional liquidity to the economy.
Payroll tax cuts and paid sick leave for gig workers were mooted. The Federal Reserve cut interest rates by 0.5 percentage point, its first emergency rate move since the 2008 financial crisis. China has earmarked the equivalent of $15.9 billion, ramping up support for virus-hit regions.
We will provide strong monetary policy support to fight against the epidemic and promote the development of the real economy.
The central bank has cut several of its key rates and urged banks to give cheap loans and payment relief to exposed companies. The EU Commission will set up an investment fund with firepower of 25 billion euros from existing resources to cushion the blow to vulnerable sectors.
We
will use all the tools at our disposal so that our economy resists this storm.
In the case of Germany, the EU's largest economy, some officials say it could release 50 billion euros without ditching the government's policy of no new debt. The coalition did agree to increase public investments by 12.4 billion euros by 2024 and to make it easier for companies to claim subsidies to support workers on reduced working hours. Italy has been the hardest hit EU country and is raising spending to counter the crisis. Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte optimistically estimated just 7.5 billion euros would be needed. Just a week later, that was upped quite considerably.
25 miliardi.
That means Italy's 2020 budget deficit looks certain to climb above 3% of national output, a ceiling set by EU rules.
Back with more local stories. Former parliamentarian Ravi Karunanayake, for whom arrest warrants have been issued, appeared before the Colombo Fort Magistrates Court this evening. The Court of Appeals had ordered that former MP Karunanayake and the other suspects appear before the Colombo magistrate before 4 p.m. today. Warrants were issued for the arrests of 10 individuals, including former MP Ravi Karunanayake, in connection with the central bank bond scam. However, the individuals did not appear before the court. The police inspected the residence of the former MP on a number of occasions. However, he could not be arrested as he was in hiding. Meanwhile, 4 of the individuals, including the former MP, requested of the court to prevent their arrests. Meanwhile, the case against Dr. Shafi Shihabdeen was taken up before the Kurunegala Magistrates Court today.
National organizer of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna Basil Rajapaksa says they should never forget the defeat they suffered in 2015. He says if they suffer a similar defeat again, the future generation will be left without a country. He expressed these views joining in the launch of the book titled Prasanna Podujana Aragale Noki Kathava, the untold story of the Prasanna-led struggle for the people. The book features the contribution of former Minister Prasanna Ranatunga since former President Mahinda Rajapaksa was defeated in the presidential election in 2015 until the presidential election on the 16th of November 2019. The book has been authored by journalist Danushka Godakumura. Speaking at the event, SLPP National Coordinator Basil Rajapaksa said anyone can be forgiven, but nothing should be forgotten. National organizer of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna Basil Rajapaksa said if they forget the defeat they suffered, they will never go along the correct path. He pointed out they were able to secure victory at the local government elections and then they faced the presidential election, and now they have arrived at the third election.
Testifying before the Presidential Commission of Inquiry into Acts of Political Revenge, former Navy Commander Admiral Jayanta Pereira said that he was under severe pressure due to various investigations that were launched after the change of government in 2015. He further stated he acted to prevent foreign groups from arriving to inspect naval camps. Rear Admiral DKP Dasanayake has lodged a complaint with the Presidential Commission alleging that he was subjected to political revenge through the compiling of fabricated evidence pertaining to the abduction and disappearance of 11 youth. The Presidential Commission of Inquiry convened today, chaired by its chairperson, retired Supreme Court Justice Upali Aberatna, and retired Navy commanders Admiral Thisara Samarasinghe, Admiral Ravindra Vijay Gunaratne, Admiral Jayanta Pereira and Rear Admiral A.R. Amarasinghe testified with regard to the complaint filed by Rear Admiral DKP Dasanayake. Retired Admiral Jayanta Pereira said the decisions taken pertaining to national security were questioned based upon various incidents over the recent years. He further stated the former president was also disappointed. Retired Rear Admiral Ravindra Vijay Gunaratne said he felt extremely disappointed before interrogations that took place at various locations. On one occasion, former Rear Admiral Vijay Gunaratne was summoned before the Committee on the Prevention of Corruption. He described the conduct of the junior police officers of the committee with much disappointment. Former Navy Commander Admiral Ravindra Vijay Gunaratne stated before the Commission that Rear Admiral DKP Dasanayake is an excellent official he came across in his military career. Lieutenant Commander Prasad Hettiarachi said it was the CID that had attributed the allies' Navy Sampat to him.
And that's all the stories we have for you tonight. We'll see you tomorrow at the very same time. Good night.
very good evening and a warm welcome to another episode on Law and Order. And today we are going to discuss on different aspects of apartment ownership law, a continuation from our program last week. And today we are going to focus on safety of a condominium property along with the powers and functions of a condominium management corporation and the condominium management authority. And once again, we are happy to welcome to Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation Channel I Studios, Mrs. Ajita Idirimana, attorney at law. She is a graduate from the University of Colombo with her LLB and also has completed her master's in law and business from Germany. It's a pleasure to have you here, madam.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here once again.
So, madam, continuing from our discussion last week, we discussed about what a buyer should be aware of and what a seller should, or what a developer should be aware of when investing in a condominium property. And along with that, we discussed on two major entities, and one is a condominium management corporation, and also the second the entity is the condominium management authority. So let me first ask you, madam, what is a condominium management corporation?
Okay, a condominium management corporation of a condominium property is the entity which is entrusted to maintain, manage and administer the common elements of a condominium property. Like how it was explained last time, the common elements are all those areas which do not get caught to a condominium unit. So if you take away the condominium units, the rest like the swimming pools, corridors, lifts, playgrounds, everything would be common elements. So common elements are managed by this entity called management corporation. Now that management corporation also has a name. Now this condominium project would be of course depicted in a condominium plan. Either it's a provisional condominium plan, semi-condominium plan or a completed condominium plan. In this particular instance, we are talking about a completed condominium property. Now the condominium plan, let's say, has the number condominium plan number 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the management corporation would be called management corporation condominium plan number 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how you identify and connect the management corporation to the condominium plan. Now this management corporation has members. It's similar to a board of directors, a company which has members. So now the members are all those unit owners. So then the management corporation in itself cannot administer and manage and maintain the common elements. So the Act has created an opportunity for a council to be established. Now, once the management corporation, let's say the deed of declaration is registered, then the management corporation comes into existence upon registration. 3 months from that date, the condominium management authority would convene the first annual general meeting. At this, the CMA would be the convener only. During this first annual general meeting, a council is appointed from those unit owners who have the time, the expertise and the knowledge to be in a council. So because you really need specialized knowledge. And then the council would thereafter engage in, like a board of directors of a company, would attend to all the matters. So many things that has to be done, look into the aspect of cleaning, the mechanical maintenance, all that will be done by the council, either on its own or the council will appoint a managing agent under a management agreement to attend to this task.
And also, when we talk about, you spoke about the Condominium Management Authority, what powers does it have?
Condominium Management Authority is the supervisory body of all condominium properties
and
in
it's a
Sri
state
Lanka.
body.
It's a statutory body which has been established under the Common Amenities Board Act. Now it's called Condominium Management